comedy, pop culture, and everything in between. By idiots, for idiots. Welcome, sinners. This is Sports Idiot Nation.
Welcome into Sports Idiot Nation, the weekly podcast that comes to you every Monday and Thursday with a fresh episode. As I hold up my cup here, a reminder to click the link in the description here in the show notes to get your sinful swag, if you will. Why am I saying what weird? So I am Adam Marino, as always, joined by Mr. T.I. and Miles, who shall remain behind enemy lines. Today, we are talking all things NFL playoffs because, as Jerry Glanville said, NFL is not for long. So we are going to talk through it. The playoffs is the most wonderful time of the year. I will say it. Screw Christmas. It is football all day, every day. We're going to go over the seeding first. So here we go. In the NFC, your Detroit Lions have restored the roar, which was their intention for the last 49 years. They have done it. They have restored it. Shout out to the 313. Then we have the 2 seed, the Eagles. They honestly just keep pushing. The Tampa Bay Bucks, which I will say they had some fraudulent activity, as it did take Mike to get the 17th game in order to get those yards. And like, as a Jerry Rice fan, not feeling it. We'll get into that. The 4 seed is the Lambs, hailing from Los Angeles. That is my thoughts on them. The 5 seed is Minnesota, which is also crazy based on what happened, and followed by the Washington Commanders at the 6th seed. Then as we head over to the AFC, the Chefs, that's great. Who the Chefs?
About the Packers.
The Packers are the 7. There, no one cares. No, I didn't forget. Bro, don't tell me how to host the show.
Is Malik Willis starting? Malik Willis going to be the starter?
Right. We'll figure that out. And then heading to the AFC, the Chefs, great googly moogly, followed by the maybe MVP. Lamar might be stealing it. Josh Allen and the Fighting Josh Allens are the 2 seed. Lamar and his MVPs are the 3 seed. The Devil, the Houston Texans, are the 4 seed. And Go Chargers, go, are the 5 seed, the James Harbaughs. The 6 seed is the Steelers as they limp into the playoffs. Just unreal. And the Denver Broncos as the 7. So as I say all that, first of all, Miles, I can't hear you. Your hat is too loud. Second, what is your take as I go through all that? What jumps out to you?
Well, at the very end, I had to rep the Denver colors being in the playoffs for the first time in a decade. That's crazy. And then thinking, how in the actual hell did the Tampa Bay Bucks wind up with the 3 seed in the NFC? Because it came down to the final day for them just to get in. If they were a wild card team, they wouldn't have been, because they wouldn't have made the playoffs with that record had they lost. And because the Rams did what they did, Sean McVay, what the hell are you thinking? Now have to host Minnesota. So the fact that we're going to see a 3-6 matchup of Tampa and Washington is very, very bizarre to me.
So here's what's funny. T.I., the Bucks-Saints game, they won 27-19. I know none of us are math majors. To me, though, that's a 1-score game if you get the 2-point conversion. They threw to Mike Evans at the last second to get him his fraudulent activity. Now, if he somehow tips it up and the Saints take it back for a pick 6 and get the 2-point conversion and tie the game, take it to overtime and win, that is the most far-fetched thing. No, not in NFL history. We've seen crazy stuff happen, from missed PATs at the end of a game to missed playoffs by the same New Orleans Saints, by the Panthers, by teams like this who, all right, just tie the game, force overtime. We have a shot at the playoffs. It's the last game of the week. They missed the PAT, right? Like, just ridiculous stuff. I can't believe that they did that and that it worked out, a la Dan Campbell, like, to do that. You know, what did you think about that?
I mean, Mike Evans is He's a freak. He's underrated. I mean,
That's
fraudulent, whatever. I mean, they're
just
gonna
what they did there. He
they're
is
gonna
not
get him.
fraudulent. He was my
Yeah, sure.
fantasy this year.
Yeah, no. I know what you mean. Yeah, like should they have done that? I mean,
It's ballsy, bro.
probably
I
not.
mean,
But I mean, we live in a different era. Dan Campbell is out here going for it. I mean, Dan Campbell the other night could have easily, made it a 3-score game. And instead, he's like, we're just going to go for it again on 4th down. And
Jahmyr Gibbs just scored again, guys.
Yeah, all he needed to could have kicked a field goal when it made it a 3-score game again. And then he's just like, nah, let's just go ahead and why not go for it again on 4th down here and try to score a touchdown instead of a field goal. I mean, yeah, it was just different times. So yeah, they're taking gambles. Players are doing things that, incentive-based contracts and things like that. I'm sure Mike Evans has a nice little, loophole in his contract where he gets a nice little bonus every time he gets 1,000 yards. So
no, for sure. That's been documented that 70 catches and 1,000 yards.
Will Levis and Tony Pollard were in the locker room. Like,
how did they end up on the show?
What all he needed, So like they are all talking about the incentives, like. So
let's do this.
Maybe it's him. He probably was like, Baker, look, I know that we shouldn't do this, but I'm going to get this nice little bonus here, so I'm going to give you a little piece of it if you can get me this.
Bake me a cake as fast as you can.
Yeah.
So let's go through the games here in order. So we do have the Chargers at Texans, and I want you guys to step out of Satan's role because obviously I know that you want the James Harbaugh
by 100. Chargers
right.
by 100.
That is such a Titans idiot. Like real quick, Ti, tell us the story of the Titans idiot. Like Titans by 100. Like how Titans idiot really started. It's kind of fun to go back to that every once in a while. I kind of want to hear it.
Yeah, well, without going into detail for the next hour and a half.
The abridged version, please, idiot.
Yeah. I was listening to the opening game when Titans played the Dolphins. Went into like 18 rain delays, lightning delays. It was the longest game in NFL history. I think it still is the longest game in NFL history, unless
still going on.
Unless that's been broken by something else, but I don't think it has. And it was week 1. It wasn't like week 17. It wasn't any playoff implications. It wasn't the Super Bowl. It wasn't the playoffs. It wasn't wild card weekend. It wasn't even the opening week of preseason. It was week 1 where nobody knows who anybody is. And we lost, and people were calling the radio, and they were just like, I swear to this team, this is the worst team, Titans team every year, same team, and it's just like, what? Like they've only played 1 game. Like nobody even wanted to be in this game. Like it was all the delays, everything. Like every time they came out of the locker room, you could just see on their face, they were just like, great, here we go. We have to come out here again. It's going to get postponed. Sure enough, it does. And so by the time it was over, they gave it away. Dolphins scored in the end. Like even went for it on like a 4th down or something to win the game. They were just like, let's just go home. And so I started mocking the folks. They kept calling in, and they were just like, I swear they try to lose. It's like they don't like their fans. And, my cousin who works for the Titans, well, he doesn't work for the Titans. His friend who his friend knows works for the Titans. And he told me they're doing, just shit like that. And so I started mocking them, and I started doing my own. And I made a little video and, put it out online, came back a couple hours later and, had all these notifications. And I was just like, what's going on my personal Facebook? It was my personal Facebook. And I had it at the time. I used to have my Facebook public. My personal Facebook, that is. So naturally,
you learned since then.
It was just going everywhere. And I just came back a few hours later, and it just had thousands of views and all these comments, and people were just like, I feel like I'm listening to talk radio. And so I just kept doing that for a while, but then that ran stale because it's like you can only do stuff like that for so long. Like, you can't, like on the sketch comedy, you can have a character that maybe has its bits, but it can't be the same skit every time. Like it has to be different scenarios. And that's what I ran into. It was like, well, I started making characters and started like having the characters calling each other and going back and forth, and brothers arguing through the radio calls. And I was just like, this is getting a little too hard to edit, and it's just pointless. And so I started doing recaps of the games and previews of the games, and then that just morphed into memes, and it morphed into this, and then it morphed into where like people actually took me seriously for what I was saying, and I was like, oh, that wasn't part of the deal. So now I had to switch it. So I had to switch it from a character base to more of like an ideal point of view or personality within a fan base as opposed to just one character. So hence why a few years into it switched from Titans Idiot to Titans Idiot Nation, because I was like,
it's a movement now.
I'm not the only idiot out here watching the Titans. I mean,
no,
we're
for sure not.
We've all been suckered into that. But I mean, it goes for any team. We're all idiots. We blindly follow these teams and let it control our emotions every weekend.
And that's what we're about at Sports Idiot Nation. But follow Titans Idiot Nation, over 30,000 strong on Facebook. Follow us wherever you get your social media. So we're talking Chargers, Texans. CJ Stroud, kind of a bit of a slump at times. The Chargers, we're not quite sure. I will say we do know who Jim Harbaugh's teams are. They want to hit you in the mouth, be physical, do things right, and let the chips fall, even though you know what they're about to do. That's fine. We're just going to do it better than you. So what's your prediction, Miles, for the way this game is going to go?
Yeah, and I think it's going to be more of the same, and I think they'll have success doing that in Houston because that style of play for Jim Harbaugh wins them wild card games. Doesn't necessarily win Super Bowls, but it does help them advance. I think the Chargers win it. I think it's going to be relatively low scoring. You're going to have some scores at the end going back and forth. I think the Chargers ultimately take it 20-17 on the road going to Kansas City.
Okay. I cannot disagree, and I get that you guys are trying to not be a Homer Simpson and just root against the Texans. I think that is realistic. So let's move on to the Steelers at Ravens. I have it 50-0. T.I., your thoughts?
Oh man, that scene in The Dark Knight Rises where like Bane takes over the stadium. Like maybe that can happen. That would be nice. That would be an ideal way for that game to transpire. And ironically, that game that a lot of Pittsburgh Steelers were in that scene. Ironically, so
right, Hines Ward,
yeah,
Big Ben.
So maybe the ground will open up and swallow half the teams. Except for Derrick Henry, of course. Like we still want him to survive. But yeah, Ravens about 50.
Just the way they limped in the playoffs, Miles. Like you're just like, oh my god, like you can't. It's almost like you can't look away. Like, oh man.
34-14 Baltimore.
Yeah, I don't think Pittsburgh hands the Ravens much of a game.
No.
So those are the games on Saturday. Always love good playoff action on Saturday night. So then moving to Sunday. This is a little juicy because the Broncos, I say the word wild card. Yes, it's wild card weekend, but I mean they're a little bit of a wild card in this whole thing in the AFC, in that house money. Sean Payton proven he's done this before. This is not his first rodeo. And when you have a rookie quarterback, you may get someone. I'll shout out Miles. He did say that Bo Nix would be the number one quarterback coming out of all this. Now, Jaden Daniels, give him a run for his money a little bit. We'll get into that. But Bo Nix, for sure, salute, young man. You did your thing. The second half of the year was tremendous. And so shout out to the Denver Broncos. But such a wild card. He may play just his hiney off because he just doesn't know. He doesn't know the tenseness of it. He just wants to get out there and play. Or he might shrink a little bit. Joe Montana has done that. Like there are really good quarterbacks who have done that in the playoffs. It happens. So Miles, how do you see that going?
Well, and obviously I wore the Broncos colors because of what you alluded to earlier. Bo Nix was my pick to be the best rookie quarterback out of this last draft. That turned out very, very well. Made me look good. So thank you, Mr. Nix. But I think seeing what he did at Kansas City last Sunday, I get it. The Chiefs did not give a damn about the game. Didn't play anyone. But he still could have gone out and laid an egg. oh my God, took him 19 throws to finally have an incompletion. He balled out. He was playing his ass off. Even he was running down the field. He was like 40 yards down the field and pitched the ball. It ended up being a forward lateral. But this dude was doing anything he could to get them into the playoffs. And I think that continues. I think it rolls over into this game. I think the Broncos are right in this game for about 3.5 quarters. Buffalo will stretch it at that point, pretty much put the game away. I think the Broncos might get a garbage touchdown at the end to make the final score a little bit closer than what it'll be in the second half. I think Buffalo wins 31-24, but I think we leave that game thinking the Broncos are going to be a problem for a while as long as Bo Nix is their quarterback.
And the defense is defensing.
Sure.
T.I., I want to ask you this. I'm going to give you some numbers, and you tell me what you're thinking. You are the math major here.
Make sure they're not more than 10, because after you go past 10, I get a little lost on the order.
Use your toes for this one. Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen. Here we go, because we've talked about the Ravens and the Bills now. 250 yards a game, 4,100 yards, 41 touchdowns, 4 picks, rushing yards just under 1,000 at 915. That is for Lamar Jackson. And then for Josh Allen, I'm pulling up his numbers. They are also sick. So we have 220 yards a game, just under 3,800 yards, 28 touchdowns. He found a way to not turn it over as much. Only 6 picks. For Josh Allen, that's like -2. And then rushing, still had over 500 yards, has more rushing yards now, I believe, than Steve Young, or approaching it. And obviously, the Bills were the Bills this year without the dynamic offense that they've kind of had before. So who is your MVP and why?
I think a few weeks ago it would have been Josh Allen, but I think it's switched to Lamar just because the last 4 games he's played out of his mind. They've been playing good ball. They look hard to beat right now, and I just think you look at Lamar's MVP season, and then you look at his numbers this season. You're just like, holy cow! He's
41-4.
Yeah, I mean, he's crushing every aspect from touchdown. I mean, the touchdown, like, what did he have his MVP season? Like 24 touchdowns or something? Like something ridiculous, And it's like, dude's got 41 now? How many is it you have?
41 touchdowns, 4 picks, and
he's
2 of
practically
them
doubled his touchdown count from his
2 of them were
season.
deflected totally by the receiver. Like, I saw a YouTube clip on it where, like, 2 of them were absolutely thrown the way that you would need him to throw it, and deflection. So, I mean, okay, you're bound to have that when you play 17 games.
And he caught so much flack from so many angles of him not being a passer and all this. And it's like, well, what do you say now? I mean, he's clearly passing. Yeah, he's got a weird throwing motion, but they've catered their entire style of offense to his style of play to a T. I mean, the angles they run, the routes they run, like they feed into the way he throws the football. It's like they don't put him in awkward situations. And you just see him when he runs down the sidelines, he's like tiptoeing. Looks like he's walking half the time, just juking guys. It's almost like Zach Morris has like the timeout, and Saved by the Bell. It's like that's what Lamar Jackson has when he starts running. Yeah. It's just like, I'm just going to dance around a couple of you guys, or, like Sonic the Hedgehog pauses it, like flips everybody's hats around and stuff. Like that's clearly, that's like Lamar Jackson when he takes off running the ball. But yeah, I just have to give it to Lamar because those numbers are ridiculous. Like I said, we had the episode where we were talking about how Josh Allen was stealing it from him, but I don't know. I just think it's very hard. There's an argument for Allen to win it, but there's not an argument for Lamar to lose it, the way I look at it.
Yeah. Hard to disagree with an idiot like you. So I definitely agree.
He's still a rat bird. Still a dirty, stinking rat bird, though.
Yeah. He does have King Henry and a Pro Bowl receiver, which he's never had.
Who's hurt?
Yeah, his knee.
I don't know how
that goes.
I don't know how hurt, but I mean, yeah, that is crazy too, though, to think about, like the Ravens. Like, why have they always had wide receiver troubles? Like, You know, how do you have this history of being a pretty good offensive team and winning Super Bowls and being competitive, but you still just haven't had a Pro Bowl receiver? You know, like it's just crazy to me. Like, how does that happen? But hey, it's the way it goes.
Yeah. So let's shift to the NFC. Miles, kind of a rough deal that the Packers have to play the same team twice this year, and neither are anywhere near Green Bay. So first they played in another country, country you're pretty familiar with, and then now they have to play at Philly. So a raw deal for them.
Which
But
some people consider a kind of almost like another country as well. You know,
we've highlighted that before. Like,
It's
don't
intense.
Packer players, wives, do not, I repeat, do not go to Philadelphia. Do not press or do not pass go and do not collect any hundreds of dollars. So the Eagles are like that team that you kind of didn't talk about, a la Minnesota. They just actually kept winning, and it was an annoyance because we don't like the fandom. We don't like the coach. We can appreciate that offensive line. Saquon is a sight to behold. Like, hey, we don't have a dog in the fight with Saquon. We just like good football. So I wonder what's that going to do as far as injuries with Green Bay. They're still very young, but you look at their losses. Take away the NFC North. Who has Green Bay lost to, Miles, this year?
Well, Philly, obviously, and then oh yeah, Philly. That's it. That's it. They're
I gave you a
11 and
softball.
6, and then in the division, oh my God, first loss at home against Chicago since 2015. First loss against Chicago since 2018 overall. They went 1-5 against their division. Oh, but the team that you lost to out of your division, you got to play again, and you might be doing it without Jordan Love. You might be doing it without Watson. Green Bay did it to themselves. They had an opportunity in the last few weeks to get up to that 5 seed. They were never going to win the division, but they had a good opportunity to go on the road against what would have been LA, a team that they already beat this year. They actually handled them pretty well, and had they been healthy, I think they would have won in LA. No, Philly, absolutely not. City probably has a higher crime rate now than Sao Paulo, where they played in week 1. They are going to get buried. Even if Love and Watson both play, they are both playing banged up. Philly will not lose that game.
No.
We'll talk about what Philly will do down the road later on, but Philly handles it. I think 35-17 at closest. That game might actually get kind of ugly, but Philly will handle that, and they'll put it away probably in the first quarter, and then we won't even think about that game there ever after.
Yeah, I'll be surprised if it's a game.
if Jordan Love doesn't start and Malik Willis starts and he's for some reason beats Philly, you're gonna have to pay
Crown
attention to
It's
Nashville
Titans.
because people are going to riot. The city is Nashville in the streets. They will be just
We let him
Ready-
go. Yeah.
ready to burn down Nissan Stadium.
I sound like Niners fans letting Sam Darnold go. Be sure to like and subscribe to the podcast. The most fun way to watch is on YouTube. Also, check out the swag. Make sure you hit the show notes. The link is right there for you. Super easy. You're welcome. So click that for your swag. One thing to talk through is the most, I think, watchable game. It's not the best teams, but as far as evenly matched and just a fun football game with characters that you're interested in, it is absolutely Washington and Tampa. And not that I care as much of those teams. Washington was kind of more my pick to click, if you will. We went through earlier a couple months ago and went through the teams that we were kind of like, okay, keep your eye on these guys. And dadgummit, they got to the playoffs. So I am quote unquote rooting for them. I don't have a dog in the fight, but what are the factors there, Miles, for that game?
Well, I think that will be the most fun game to watch in the wild card weekend. I think Denver will be the most fun team to watch, but the most fun game to watch will be Washington and Tampa. And I think it really comes down to how does Jane Daniels handle the moment. I think he's the X factor in that game. Yeah, that probably sounds like a mundane comment, but being a rookie quarterback in a game, Washington honestly should win. I think Washington's the better football team. He's a major factor for that. So I think as he goes, that game goes. If he goes out and lays an egg, kind of like he did in Week 18, sure they won the ball game at Dallas to creep up to that 6 seed to get in this game and avoid playing in Philly, which would have been a nightmare situation for them. I think he's got an opportunity in warmer weather. Again, he's a Bayou kid playing at LSU. Gets a chance to play in Tampa, truly SEC territory. I think he's got a great opportunity to show that he is indeed the best rookie quarterback, as much as that pains me to say. I think he has that opportunity to show I should be rookie of the year, offensive rookie of the year, not just in the MC, but in the entire NFL. And I think he does enough. I don't think he has an elite outing, but I think he handles the pressure to a point where he leads them down the field. I think they're going to kick copious amounts of field goals. And I think it's to the point where Washington actually walks it off on a 45-yard field goal to win in Tampa 26-24.
Wow. So Ti, my X factors for this game is the turnover battle and who has the ball last, which Miles pointed out it hopefully for his prediction will be Washington. Is there anything else that you're looking for when you look at Tampa and Washington?
My X factor is the team that scores the most points will probably win the game. That's what I'm thinking.
Boom, where'd that truck come from?
That's what
our Madden moment.
Boom, boom. But no, I mean, it comes down to Baker Mayfield. It does. I mean, the Bucks go as far as he takes them. He's got receivers, but he hadn't had them all year. He lost Godwin, Mike Evans.
He ran the ball well last game.
I mean,
you don't see.
I mean, he's
an athlete.
He's great. I think they have a shot. I think Jaden Daniels is riding high as well. Washington's riding the hype train. Both those teams did a lot better than their fans probably expected. So it could be anybody's game. Bucks were my pick to click. So, I'm going to have to probably root on their side there. And I do like Baker. Reminds me of young Brett Favre. Brett Favre's always been my favorite quarterback to watch. I don't take financial advice from him, but he's a good quarterback. But I think the Bucks have a shot. I think they get the win. I think Baker Mayfield will then drive to Washington and plant a flag in the middle of Washington's field afterwards, because he can't really do that at the home field because it doesn't have the same impact, So
it's not a felony.
Yeah, because like you said, they did get the 3, which is ridiculous. I think the NFL is going to have to take the NBA approach and just reseed based on your records and not this whole division winner stuff, because it's ridiculous the way that they get a home game, but the Vikings are now on the road. It's kind of silly.
Which let's get into that. So 2 teams that really screwed the pooch just hours ago, and here's the situation. The Rams, we talked about on Monday's show. Reminder that we come to you every Monday and Thursday at Sports Idiot Nation. The most fun way is to watch on YouTube, of course. So just a few hours ago, both the Vikings and the Rams screwed the pooch in that the Rams, if they would have played their starters and would have beat Seattle, they would be in a better situation not having to play what went down later in the evening, Sunday night, between the Vikings and the Lions. And the Vikings, as great as they've played all year, all they had to do was not settle for 87 field goals and beat Detroit, and they would not be in this situation where they now go on the road. So I want to pose this question as we talked about Baker Mayfield. T.I., you are starting over with the Titans. You are not drafting a quarterback. Well documented. You have the number 1 pick, sorry. Let's say you're not going quarterback at all. You're definitely not the number 1 seed, bro. Don't worry about that. I want to get you excited. The number 1 pick.
We're number 1 ranked overall.
We're number 1, man. So with the number 1 pick, you're not going to get a quarterback. and you're going to sign either Baker Mayfield or Sam Darnold. Go.
Oh man, for me it's Baker, but for Callahan, who knows? I don't know what he's looking for. I think he likes Baker style player. Is Baker cut from the same cloth as Joe Burrow? I mean, they're both gunslingers. They're both not afraid to take a chance. They're both, at times in the right situation, great leaders. We've seen that with Joe Burrow, and we've seen that from Baker Mayfield now in multiple situations. So I wanted the Titans to go after him. When the Bucs signed him, I had very vocal about that. I was like, I'd be perfectly happy with Baker coming to Nashville. So yeah, I got to lean towards Baker. I just don't know if I believe in Sam Darnold. Kevin Stefanski is kind of like a QB whisperer in a way. I mean,
You think it's more on him?
I just don't. I don't know, because we've seen Sam Darnold in multiple situations, and
Well, he's seen ghosts.
yeah, he's been very, very putrid. So I don't know. Like, I've seen Baker Mayfield succeed in multiple areas, even in crappy situations. I've seen him get signed by LA in 3 hours before the game and come in and get the win. Like, dude's just a baller. Like, that's just, you're born with that. You either have it or you don't, like
Maybe it's Maybelline.
there's not a lot of quarterbacks that could have, even that Rams game, that when they signed him, like, there's not a lot of quarterbacks that could have did that. And he did, and he's done it everywhere he goes. He wins games. I mean, he didn't really get a chance in Carolina. He was, shipped out, which is probably good for him. But yeah, I got to go with Baker there. That's what my gut tells me. I mean, I if whatever happens, I mean, I don't think they necessarily have a shot at either of those guys.
Agreed.
I mean, maybe
What about that quarterback in Washington this last week that absolutely balled out in Jane Daniels' absence? What about that guy?
Yeah, what's his name again?
Eminem, right?
Sparky something? Sparky Toyota? Spartacus Toyota? I think that's his name. Oh, Marcus Mariota. That's right.
That's
Mariota.
who it was.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I mean, no, I wouldn't. That would be typical Titans fashion. I mean, that's like Sam Darnold and Geno Smith both going back for the Jets and competing for the number one quarterback starting position, But hey, stranger shit's happen, so, whatever. But yeah, I got to go Baker. I got to start with Baker there.
All right, so now let's go to the Vikings and Rams. Very, like we said, very odd situation, the way it panned out. I don't know what to think of this game, and I'm trying to step out of being a homer and just out of my hatred for the Lambs. So I just, with guys healthy over there with Matthew Stafford, it's hard to say you're going to hold them to less than 23, 24 points. And I think then with Tampa is, again, I say wild card in that you don't know what Mike Evans might have 3 freaking touchdowns. Like, he just might, because no one can stop him for 11 straight years. So I don't know. Miles, what is the storyline there for you?
So, as I mentioned, Washington Tampa will be the most fun game. LA Rams of St. Louis and Minnesota will be the most intense game of Wild Card Weekend. A lot of people might think, oh, that's going to be the most fun game. No, it's going to be the opposite of that. It is going to be brutal. What does Darnold do? Does he show up in the moment he's seeing ghosts? Well, with Minnesota, he sees JJ. So that's a huge,
and
huge
Addison and the running backs and the tight end. Like, dude, he's got a decent team.
Yeah. Yes, and that has gone a long way to him actually having success. What is that Minnesota defense going to do? Every other week, man, you think they're the best with Brian Flores, are they the best in the NFL, and then they lay an egg again in Detroit, and certainly not the first time they've done that. Just so gosh darn inconsistent. What is Stafford going to do? Is he over the hill? Nah, the man's a PTPer. I mean, he gets it done when his back's against the wall. It just feels time after time when you think he is done more or less with his opportunities to advance deep, to pull something out of his ass.
He's awesome, baby.
Going to win this game. I think it's going to be 31-27. Minnesota ultimately wins this game. I think they are going to have a defensive score That's going to swing this game. It's going to swing momentum at some point during the second half. And I think that will put the Rams away and ultimately show that they made a massive, massive mistake, a colossal mistake, sitting those players in week 18. They should have played for that 3 seed.
Yeah, that's really weird to me. I loved seeing it because I don't like them. But T.I., how do you see it going?
Oh man, like you said, it's hard to bet against Matt Stafford, but I feel like the Vikings outside of their own division are proven that they can beat anybody. And I feel like Miles kind of got leaked the script a little bit because he's got some very exact kind of,
I am the script, baby.
Premonitions.
It's an end around to Tutu Atwell. Yeah, he fumbles.
He's got these visions, these premonitions of how these games are going to go, and they sound very accurate. So if these games fall the way that Miles is predicting, then we need to look into his who his middleman is here for this script, because we all need to get a copy of this NFL script.
Yeah, Biff
could go for a hot, a nice little sale on eBay. But yeah,
well, I think T.I., on a more serious note, you bring up a very interesting point of how well the NFC North does outside of the division. And I mentioned in our episode with Kelsey a week and a half ago of how the NFC North was 11-1 against the NFC West. What was the one loss? Minnesota at LA.
Yeah.
Here's the rematch.
Yeah. Oh man, juicy.
So yeah, I gotta lean towards the Vikings on that one as well. I mean, I don't know. The Rams are very Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, or Mr. Hyde, Dr. Jekyll. I don't know.
Whichever one comes first.
Dr. Hyde, Mr. Jekyll, whoever, one of those guys, Jekyll and Hyde, But yeah, I don't know. My gut says Minnesota. I didn't get the script, but my gut says Minnesota.
Yeah. And to your point about Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, it seems like Minnesota has been that way on both sides of the ball, but when one side of the ball is down, the other picks them up, and they figure out a way to win. Unless they're playing Detroit. But guess what? They don't have to play Detroit this week. So right. I think that's a huge factor. And if they, like I said, they get that big-time turnover and can score, whether it's on defense or on special teams, I don't know how the Rams recover from that.
Yeah, I agree.
So NFL playoffs. Very excited for lots of foosball.
You kidding me?
It's not the devil. Be sure to like and subscribe where you get your podcast. The usual suspects are Apple and Spotify. However, the most fun way to watch is always on YouTube.
See our faces. See our beautiful faces.
It's a solid face. So hot in the face. Shout out to our South Park episode.
So your heart, so strong in body, so hot in the face.
Yes.
I was watching a thing with my kiddo last night, a couple nights ago, actually. Like, wasn't really last night.
Sports, comedy, pop culture, and everything in between. By idiots, for idiots. Welcome, sinners. This is Sports Idiot Nation.
They had this moment where they were talking about rewriting the Christmas traditions, and they were like, well, this is great for us, and of course all the parents are like, well, what's great for you all is not great for everyone. And they're like, but their whole idea was like, well, what's great for us is great for everyone, and it reminded me of that South Park episode, they're like,
therefore the world,
it's like these two little 8-year-olds are just like, well, what's good for us is great for everyone.
I saw a post that was definitely liked by Miles. It's crazy how you scroll through social media and you say you see oh, my neighbor liked this post, or so and so, because I don't know who posted it, just random, but it was Taylor Swift and it was on a building, and so her mouth, they did it, and there was a break in the action where they had her picture on the building, and so it was right here in the mouth, and so someone posted that and said, I didn't know Taylor Swift was Canadian, and 51% of the people scrolling by that were like, I don't get it. But U49, you are our people. So shout out to the South Park episode. Be sure to check out that episode as we talk all things South Park. That was a fun episode, and it was great for us and therefore the world. So we will see you Monday. Okay, all you sinners, follow Sports Idiot Nation on TikTok, X, and Instagram. Like us on Facebook, and remember, the most fun way to watch us is on YouTube every Monday and Thursday. Be sure to hit the notification bell so you can be updated when new content drops. Remember, the podcast can also be found on the usual suspects of Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Always remember, don't be an idiot.
Sinner.